This war just entered the kind of phase that breaks systems, not just targets. More strikes, more forces moving, and the most dangerous part isn't even inside Iran. It's the narrow strip of water that can spike global prices overnight. Because once Hormuz starts freezing up, every country gets dragged in, not by ideology, by fuel, by inflation, by panic buying, and by the political pressure that hits the second voters feel it at the pump. Tonight, the pressure isn't building slowly, it's stacking, and it's stacking fast. Here are 4 pressure points to lock in. First, escalation threat. Trump says Iran will be hit very hard over the next week. Second, deployments. Thousands of Marines are expected, but details are still being briefed, not publicly announced. Third, the choke point. Escorts through Hormuz are being described as too risky right now, and that single fact can freeze shipping without a formal blockade. Fourth, the Russia angle. Washington is talking about loosening restrictions on buying Russian oil already loaded on ships, and that turns this into a sanctions and war funding fight. In the next 12 minutes, we're connecting the chain. Deployments, raids, shipping fear, oil shock, sanctions drift, Russia revenue, and the knock-on pressure this can dump back into Europe. Start with the map. Hormuz is the gate. It's the difference between regional conflict and global price shock. When traffic slows there, everything downstream reacts. Insurance, routing, tanker schedules, and then politics. That's why the US is preparing additional forces to the Middle East as the conflict enters its 3rd week. Thousands of Marines are expected, though how they'd be used is still unclear. Now the deployment detail that matters. An amphibious assault ship and a large troop package, trained specifically for maritime choke points.
Sophie, this is a deployment of the USS Tripoli, which is an amphibious assault ship, alongside up to 5,000 troops, about half of which it is thought will be US Marines. Now, this is a task force that is trained in things like carrying out amphibious landings, securing maritime chokeholds. So exactly the kind of situation that the global shipping industry is currently facing in the Strait of Hormuz.
Bateman also says this isn't being rolled out as a public announcement, it's being briefed by officials. And the timeline is a tell. The task force is in Japan, and the estimate is about 2 weeks to reach the Middle East. That means planning for duration. Think about what that training implies. Amphibious forces aren't built for press conferences. They're built for moving fast along coastlines, putting boots on key points, and controlling access when routes get dangerous. Even if they never fire a shot, their presence is meant to change calculations around the choke point. And while that force is moving, the strikes keep going.
At the same time, US bombing raids have continued into Iran all day. I was in a briefing earlier with Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary, saying this would be the highest number of strikes today.
That line changes behavior instantly. No escort means no confidence. No confidence means ships wait. And ships waiting is how a choke point becomes a weapon. And the key thing here is psychology. Markets don't wait for official statements. Shipping doesn't wait for proof. The moment captains believe the risk is real, they pause. The moment insurers price that fear in, costs spike. And once costs spike, the pressure lands on politicians who suddenly need a quick win. Now here's how the pressure builds in real time. First, the air campaign keeps grinding. All-day strikes, paired with talk of the highest daily count, signals sustained intensity. Sustained intensity changes bargaining. It changes morale. It changes decision speed. You can feel the squeeze in the way officials talk about time. When a war starts touching energy, every day matters. Every delay becomes a headline, and every headline becomes a decision point. At the same time, the public messaging is pushing hard on leadership pressure. The Defense Secretary says the US and Israel have hit 15,000 targets since the war began, 2 weeks ago tomorrow. There's also a $10 million reward being offered for information about the whereabouts of Iran's leaders. And the claims go further, including assertions about Iran's new supreme leader being in hiding and wounded.
Desperate and hiding, they've gone underground. We know the new so-called not-so-supreme leader is wounded and likely disfigured.
Iran's response is defiance, and it's aimed straight at Trump.
The problem with Trump is that he's not intelligent enough to understand that Iranians are a mature and strong and determined nation. The more pressure he exerts, the stronger our nation's willpower will become.
Then you get the moment that shows how close the strikes are getting, an explosion during a live interview on state-run television.
Another airstrike took place as state-run TV was interviewing Iran's hardline head of the judiciary.
And the on-air line stays the same. No fear, no backing down.
People are not afraid of these attacks, he says. We will not back down in any way.
Under that, the humanitarian cost rises. Damaged homes, damaged facilities, people leaving. That isn't just tragedy. It also changes internal pressure and stability.
Rescuers are working to find anyone still alive as quickly as possible.
And it's not staying inside Iran. The air defense fight is spilling across the Gulf. Defensive flights, interceptions, debris incidents, and growing anxiety in the background. Now, zoom back out. When the Gulf turns into a contested corridor, countries start acting like they're one surprise away from disaster. Flights reroute, ports slow down, air defense systems go on edge. And rumors spread faster than radar tracks. Now the shockwave spreads. In the UK, petrol hits an 18-month high. Diesel hits its highest since late 2023. And the anger is rising because prices move faster than paychecks. And here's where it gets ugly for governments. Fuel prices are the fastest political pain. They don't care about your talking points. They show up on a sign outside a station, and people remember it for weeks. That's why this story is moving from battle updates into economic emergency so quickly. Then you get the blunt line from the economics editor. The effective closure of Hormuz in recent days has been unprecedented. Tankers sit still, oil piles up on the water, and crews start talking like they're trapped.
Every day on the ship, I can see missile launches and hear explosions, making me feel like I'm in danger.
And the intimidation message goes public.
Attention all ships, attention all ships. Every navigating from the Strait of Hormuz is banned from now on.
Now watch the policy response, because this is where the story jumps theaters. The US says it will loosen sanctions on other countries buying Russian oil and petroleum already loaded at sea. The Kremlin welcomes it. Ukraine warns it's a mistake.
The queue of stationary tankers grows, the impact of 2 weeks of war rippling out across the global economy. Washington says allowing countries to buy Russian oil may help. It says the lifting of sanctions will promote stability in global markets and won't significantly benefit Russia. Others beg to differ.
Ukraine's point is simple. Money becomes weapons.
Regarding sanctions, lifting them will lead to the strengthening of Russia's position. They earn money and buy weapons with them.
And France tries to shut the door before it opens wider.
We reaffirm that rising oil prices must in no way lead us to reconsider our sanctions policy toward Russia.
That's the turning point. A limited waiver is still a precedent, and precedents are how temporary becomes normal. When sanctions policy starts bending in public, allies start asking questions. How wide is the waiver? Who qualifies? Does it get renewed? Because once you open a door, the pressure to keep it open gets stronger every time prices jump. And the politics behind it are obvious. Petrol prices rise at home, voters get loud, and every leader starts searching for the quickest pressure release. So what changes now if this pressure system holds? First, Hormuz becomes the accelerator, not the background. If escorts stay not possible, shipping behavior stays frozen, and the price shock compounds. The corridor doesn't need to be formally closed, it just needs to stay scared. Second, sanctions become a battlefield. A waiver meant to ease oil pressure can also ease Russia's cash flow. That's why Ukraine and parts of Europe treat this as dangerous. Third, the Iran war starts rewriting the Ukraine war's economics. If Russia earns more, Russia buys more. And if Russia buys more, the Ukraine fight gets longer, regardless of what happens next in the Gulf. So the big change isn't just what happens next inside Iran. It's what happens next in boardrooms and cabinet rooms. Shipping firms deciding whether to move, governments deciding whether to bend, and rivals deciding whether this is the moment to push. 3 things to watch in the next 24 to 72 hours. First, escort reality. Do we hear any shift from not possible toward coalition escort plans, or does shipping remain stuck because the risk stays too high? Second, waiver drift. Does the 30-day license stay narrow, or does it widen, renew, or quietly expand? Third, corridor intimidation. If banned messaging and harassment continues, tankers may stay frozen even without a formal blockade. What breaks first? Hormuz, sanctions, or patience? One quick supporting layer before we go. Russia is described as being pleased about any move that suggests sanctions can be reversed, and about high oil prices generating extra revenue. And there's travel disruption. UK nationals returning, others stranded after Gulf hub connections are cancelled. Real disruption, but not the main driver of the story tonight.